Hello and welcome. Tonight's program is a collaboration between the United States Consulate General in Chennai and the Logical Indian. I'm Sean Madden, Vice Consul at the U.S. Consulate General in Chennai, and I will be your anchor this evening. I'd like to thank you for joining us. This program is being simulcast on the Facebook pages of the Logical Indian and the U.S. Consulates in Chennai, Hyderabad, and Calcutta. Tonight's program commemorates Women's Equality Day. Women's Equality Day was established by the United States Congress in 1973 to commemorate the certification of the 19th Amendment of the Constitution to the United States on August 26, 1920, 100 years ago tonight. For those who may not be familiar with it, the 19th Amendment prohibits American states and our federal government from denying anyone the right to vote because of their sex. Prior to 1920, whether an American woman could vote largely depended on where she lived. Some states allowed women to vote, others did not. The 19th Amendment leveled the playing field between men and women where voting was concerned. And today we celebrate its 100th anniversary with this program. Our theme for tonight is Women in Leadership. Can they have it all? I'll take a moment to offer my own answer. Yes, they can. My own mother was a very senior and influential attorney for the United States Air Force, rising to the Indian Air Force equivalent of Air Marshal, while also being married and raising 3 children with my father. I recognize that Indians face different cultural expectations and challenges than Americans currently do, and that Indian society may be at a different point on the journey towards total equality. Indeed, Indian society may ultimately define equality differently than does American society. So I'll be following tonight's discussion with great interest in the hopes of learning something about the similarities and differences between the situation of Indians and Americans in this regard. We want this program to be interactive, so if you have questions for our panelists, please use the comments box to type your question, and our colleagues will get them across to the panel. The subject of women's empowerment is a core focus for U.S. Mission India, by which I speak of the U.S. Embassy and all of our consulates in India. And here at the U.S. Consulate General in Chennai, we continue to build our efforts on the subject of women's empowerment and equality. We see and understand that women's empowerment is not an annual one-day commemoration, but a daily effort. The digital footprint we've created on this has been ongoing for over 2 years now through content we've published with the hashtag Women's Equality Redefined. This year, we have found a like-minded partner in the Logical Indian. And through the days leading up to this evening, we have worked with the Logical Indian to tell the stories of over 10 women leaders in the series hashtag She Leads. And this evening's program will feature 3 of those women leaders. Tonight's program will be moderated by Shweta Kothari, Managing Editor of the Logical Indian. Ms. Kothari is a broadcast turned digital journalist. She heads a newsroom at the Logical Indian and has previously worked with CNBC and until recently with NewsX, where she was a news anchor. Ms. Kothari holds a master's degree in journalism from the University of Sussex in the United Kingdom and started her career with the BBC in Scotland. Shweta, over to you.
Well, thank you, Sean. And thank you for also bringing in your perspective of the United States. Now, women are often told that they can have it all and all they need to do is work hard. Most of us, the working class Indian women, grew up in families that encouraged us, and other women who were not so encouraged by their families had to fight their way in with courage and conviction. As we progress, and remember, we recently completed 74 years of Indian independence, we may assume that it is today easier for a woman, but the statistics speak otherwise. Women's workforce participation in India is declining rapidly in both rural India and urban India, and this according to the Indian Statistical Institute. The figures are quite alarming. So we're going to talk about why it's happening, what are the challenges that Indian women are facing in the workplace and otherwise, and can women have it all? To discuss that and much more, I'm being joined today by Mayura, she's the founder and CEO of Craftisan Foundation, a social enterprise which focuses on craft-based livelihoods for traditional artisans as well as the marginalized communities. To date, Craftisan has benefited over 2,000 people who do not have access to mainstream income earning opportunities, including people with intellectual disability and women from underprivileged background. They were awarded the Sankalp Award for Best Social Enterprise in the Plastic Mitigation category in November of 2019. An MBA from Indian School of Business, Mayura has a grassroots experience coming in from managing a national rural tourism project with UNDP and Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. She's a recipient of NABARD Social Entrepreneur Fellowship as a part of their Rural Innovations Fund. She's also a part of the Indian Women Social Entrepreneurs Network program initiated by the US Consulate General in Chennai and Amani Institute. Thanks very much, Mayura, for being a part of the panel today. Also joining us, Sahar Mansoor. Sahar is the founder and CEO of Bare Necessities, a hub for zero waste living in India. She built BN, a social enterprise that produces zero waste personal and lifestyle products. BN was titled as one of the top 5 handcrafted in India brands by Harper Bazaar in 2017. For her work in changing the narrative on waste in India, Sahar has been recognized by Google India as the most inspiring Indian for the year of 2017. NDTV also named her as Swachh Warrior in 2017. MTV India, in association with Jockey Women, featured her as one of the 6 women redefining career paths in the 21st century in 2018. Seher participated in Tech Camp program by the US State Department in 2018 and is also a part of the Indian Women's Social Entrepreneurs Network. Thanks very much, Sahar, for being a part of the panel today. And lastly, we have Harshita joining us. Harshita is a political consultant with the PGP in Public Policy and Engineering in Biotechnology from BMS College of Engineering. She started her career in social development sector on urban poverty and sustainability during college and continued thereafter. Over the last 7 years, she's worked on political campaigns, constituency management with leading consulting firm based in Bengaluru. She is currently working with Bengaluru Political Action Committee, a non-partisan, apolitical NGO for the past 3 years as the political engagements lead, working with Be Engaged, a participatory democracy program. She is a 2018 alumnus of the US State Department Legislative Fellow Exchange Program. To all the ladies who've agreed to be a part of the panel today, welcome and thank you for taking your time out. Let me first quickly begin with Mayura. Mayura, you were initially employed by the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, before you actually started Craftisan. I want to understand from you how difficult or easy was it for you as a woman to be an entrepreneur in the field of craft?
Thank you, Shweta, and hello, everyone. So, I think first off, I want to say that, when we talk about can women have it all, I think another way of looking at it is, can we have all that we truly want, right? And do we have that freedom of choice to really go after our own individual dreams and aspirations? So for me, when I worked on this project with the United Nations Development Program, which was along with the Ministry of Tourism, it was actually a dream job. I was paid to travel around the country. We were implementing the project in 20 states, 36 villages. We were enabling craft and culture-based livelihoods through tourism, right? So that's hospitality, that's craft, culture, performing arts, you name it. And I've always been a self-professed, cultural aficionado or a, culture vulture. So for me, it was a dream job. But through it all, I realized that there's huge advantages to being part of a large setup, to being part of a big system, right? And to be able to manage a project at a large scale. But there's also a lot of satisfaction to be able to maybe pick a niche and make a difference in your own way, however small it may be. And I think that project gave me an exposure to the grassroots. It gave me an exposure to the actual challenges faced by traditional artisans across the country. And I knew that someday I will want to, in my own way, start my own venture to make a difference to their lives, just to address some of the gaps I saw, which, I felt only I could do. I mean, every entrepreneur believes, you start off with that assumption that only you can do what you set out to do, right? So with that belief and sort of motivation, a few years down the line, I decided to turn entrepreneur.
So I'm going to just go back to that question. What was the journey when you started out as a woman entrepreneur? Was it difficult? Was it easy? Did you get the necessary support around you?
So I have to say that the development sector in India is a lot more, I would say, equal in terms of the opportunities for men and women, right? Throughout my development career, I had more, I would say, women colleagues. One of my favorite mentors has been, the first boss I had was a woman, and she really shaped the way I thought. So in the development sector, I have to say the opportunities were equal. uh, but yes, when you turn entrepreneur, there are sometimes these, judgments of when you're a woman. For example, people assume that, especially when you're a social entrepreneur, some of the judgments I have faced, for example, are, oh, you're doing this because you don't really want a full-time career, or oh, you're doing this because you don't really need to make the money, you have no financial dependence, or so I just found that a lot of excuses were being thrown my way for me following my choice and my passion, whereas I didn't see that. And of course the worst of it was, oh, you're doing this as a hobby, and I hated that. I mean, for me, turning entrepreneur was to do something big, to take it to scale, to really run a scalable, impactful venture, right? It was not doing a hobby, it was not doing something by the way, by its side. So I think that is something women face, which men don't. I remember very early on in my venture, I decided to raise some debt funding, and I got turned down by the bank because they said, you're a single woman, you're an entrepreneur doing this solo, and therefore we don't find you credit worthy. So I mean, there were all of these sort of hurdles for sure. But on the flip side, there have also been a lot of support that has come my way. I've got donors who've had no qualms in giving us 3, 4, 5 year funding. When we were just a very nascent fledgling organization, we've just turned 6 years old. There are people who've really kind of uh, made so many introductions, putting their own sort of reputation on the line, and said, you know what, I believe in her, go for it. This is the sort of, and opening doors for us. So it's been a mixed bag, but it's mostly been positive. Okay. And I don't know whether it's a function of being in the development sector or otherwise, or it's just having access to a network that has been super, super supportive. But I have felt truly fortunate in my journey so far. And I also believe that one has to take a risk, dream big, aim high, but take that risk. Because if you don't take that risk, you will never know. I mean, the outcome can be good, bad, ugly, but take that risk, because that's the first step in believing in yourself, in really truly investing in your idea, in your passion. And I have seen it always playing out for the better.
Seher, coming to you, were these the same challenges that you faced in your venture? Because you've come up with, some would say, one of a kind company. Did you get the support you need? Did you face the same sort of hurdles, both regulatory and people's perception, or was it relatively easy for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Shweta. There were plenty of challenges. I mean, the list honestly goes on. I moved back to India, then I worked in the development space, I worked in the renewable energy space. I didn't have great credit history. And before that, I was in America and Geneva and London, so I didn't have any credit history. So for me, even access to that bank loan was not possible. Had very little savings from my social enterprise work that I was doing in the renewable energy space. I tried to raise funds, and you're a 25-year-old, basically funders weren't looking at you very seriously. You're a young single girl who has this crazy, audacious idea. I think it was very, very hard in the early days. But then what I did was, we just buckled down and focused on building the business. And we were positive on a per unit economic level. All the revenue that we generated, we invested back into the company. And then kind of as we grew and scaled, investors started reaching out to us. And so I think that's been really nice. And of course, really, really supportive ecosystem of friends who've written the legal terms and conditions on my website, a friend who's done my logo. I mean, the incredible support that is kind of in, your hometown, which has been really, really amazing. So insanely amazing, supportive mom and two big sisters who've been very entrepreneurial and great leaders and great inspiration for me. So I think that was also really helpful.
All right, coming to Harshita, you've had a change of career path. You were initially an engineer, then you turned into politics and policy. Many would say that engineering is a safer job option, and you then ventured into a risky avenue. How did your parents take it? How did people around you take it?
Good evening, Shweta and my fellow panelists. Thank you for that question. Mine was an accidental journey, and I realized towards the end of engineering that I'm not going to be a lab rat. I won't be able to do that. And social space was something that I was really drawn to. And coming from a conservative family, I had a lot of geographical restrictions on where I could do what. And I was always keen on doing that. So I initially did a full-time internship on sustainability and urban community development and all of that. And I accidentally, was brought into this political consulting in a leading firm working on a big campaign in Bangalore. Was pushed by my really close friend. So she said, since you're politics and policy geek, I think this is something that you should try out. And it was literally a 15-minute interview, and I got into this space without even realizing. And like you said, I'm an engineer, so I didn't really have the training for that. And politics, like Mayura was saying, it has a kind of a stigma, just like entrepreneurship. So it's not for women, it's not safe, it's not something that is your parents can boast. Like, for example, I think they're more comfortable saying that their daughter is strong, independent, and is a software engineer is an easier thing to say for them, or even try to understand why I'm driven in this space. So, coming from that kind of a background, I had to literally put myself in situations that were difficult. I had to simulate environment in a way that I was able to rise up to the challenges, because I wasn't clearly equipped for any of these things. So I had a lot of people on my side, and I've been really lucky and grateful for that. Like Seher was saying, that it's the friends that you're surrounded with, and it's the first few bosses that matter so much. And my current organization is run by really strong women, from the board to the CEO and my fellow colleagues. So it's been difficult. So there are days where things are really bad, and there's, if you say your day was bad, the immediate question would be like, why do you need to work, right? Like, everything is set, and to have it all is something is not very not everybody can comprehend. Like, what do you mean by have it all? Don't you have a good house? You don't have any financial distress. You can have a settled life is the easier option. But when you're passionate and you want to make a difference to the society, it's always more difficult to explain that to people, because every time a career opportunity or a career field is that is not very mainstream is introduced to parents, it becomes a question of, but aren't you trying to make money? So sometimes you need to establish that while working on your passion, you will be able to sustain yourself financially as well. So it's been a roller coaster ride, and there's always people that I can fall back on that will help me through those tough days. But otherwise, the work is really rewarding. So that's what's keeping me going.
I think that it's one of those questions we all get to hear, I suppose, Harshita. Why do you want to work? You have everything that you need, especially as Indian women. I think we continue to battle that perception all the time. But before I come to those perceptions and the challenges that we face individually, I want to go back to Sahar and Mayura both. And I'm getting to understand both of you have been recipient of US State Department programs. I want to know from you, how did that help in your journey as entrepreneurs? First to Sahar and then to Mayura.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in 2018, I had the opportunity of attending the US Tech Camp in Dubai. It was with entrepreneurs from Pakistan and India. And what was so inspiring is, whether we're in India or Pakistan, beyond borders, we face such similar challenges. And whether it's societal constructs or access to finance or anything, or even just this notion that women can't be tech entrepreneurs. And I think that program was extremely well done and kind of broke all of those barriers, multiple barriers actually. And then by virtue of that program, we're actually building a waste calculator tech product, which is quite exciting and is in pipeline. But also we were really fortunate to be a recipient of a small grant post the couple of months after the tech camp, which has helped build a couple of things as well. So I think that was really phenomenal. And then now we're in the Indian Women Social Entrepreneurship Network in association with the Amani Institute. And honestly, it is just a room filled of badass, fierce, really inspiring entrepreneurs. And we get really real with each other. We're also encouraged to do small groups, and then we regroup in a bigger group. And I think it's just been so refreshing to be honest and open about challenges, to feel like we have a support system to kind of reach out to each other, lean on each other, whether it is kind of questions on finance or, hey, who's your payment gateway? Just little things to big things. I think it's been like a huge sounding board, and it's only just begun. And I really think it's going to be a long-term journey with a couple of friends that I've made through the program. And I think entrepreneurship sometimes can be quite a lonely journey sometimes, and especially for me, I don't have a co-founder or anything. So I think through networks like this, I feel less alone. And I went to all girls high school. I have two big sisters. I love making these sister bonds, and I think in a way some of those programs I've been part of have really kind of built that sisterhood for me. So super fortunate and grateful for that.
So Sahar has put it so well, because I've been a recent entrant through the Indian Women Social Entrepreneurs Network, and Sahar has just put it so well. I mean, the sisterhood there is just amazing. I'm a sole founder myself, and I often find that while I have a vast support network, the ones who truly get what I'm going through, especially when the going isn't great, are entrepreneurs, right? Men and women, but especially it's always good to have a sisterhood there that understands what you're going through. But also, I think the program has been structured so well. I mean, already in the last month and a half, I feel like I've already started making a few changes, in terms of the way I look at my venture, in some of, I think, my own insecurities, in this sense, in some of my own doubts about my abilities. And I think that's where I see this program as being so powerful, because it's really looking at getting the best out of all of us, and they've got a lot of data and research to back the kind of the modules that they're presenting to us. So I think that's been really good.
Harshita, you've been a part of an exchange program as well. How has that worked out for you?
I went on a governance in society fellowship, and I got to work with, again, Pakistani and Nepali colleagues over there. But we were broken off and allowed to work for 3 weeks in a US organization. So I was in Phoenix, working with Chicanos por la Cosa. So they have, again, it's a not-for-profit, really strong network of Hispanic population, and they work in a very targeted thing. So I could draw a lot of parallels to, my work here. And also it was US midterm elections back then. So I really got to work on a mayoral campaign to just to get a flavor of how US politics works. And it was a women campaign for, I think she was the first mayor of that city, so women mayor. So it was a really nice experience overall, to one, understand governance in two different places, to understand the sources of issues in both the countries, right? And how some of the things we are better off, and some things they are better off. So that exchange was very enriching. And of course, I got to make a lot of connections with people who are working on similar issues. And like Mayura and Sahar said, the sisterhood bond is, I still am in touch with them. And again, it's the same thing, right? Like single women who don't have to put a lot of effort to takes the space while in a room, right? You need to be a little extra loud, the 5-10% a little bit more, I just to put their effort to say, hey, I'm here, I'm part of it. So those kinds of struggles when you discuss with your colleagues who are going through the same journey and the same kind of parental pressures and same kinds of career definitions that are so like fuzzy, and you're not able to pinpoint one, and multidisciplinary. So those are things that that really helped me from that program.
That sounds lovely, Harshita. I want to go back to Mayura. Mayura, you've worked with a lot of women, and you've directly dealt with a lot of women, especially from rural India, as a matter of your business and as a matter of the work that you do in Crafties. And what are the challenges that you have seen them facing? Have you had the opportunity to interact with them? If yes, what are the challenges do you think they face on a daily basis?
That's a great question. I think first and foremost, Shweta, it's the fact that, many, I mean, at least those of us on this panel probably took equality for granted growing up. We had the freedom to make our own, to dream, to make our own choices. Whereas a lot of women that we work with, both rural and urban, have never had that choice at all. They've been brought up thinking that their only place was, to get married and to have children, to be the homemaker, not to, be the provider, not to be the one who is in charge, right? Always the one who's dependent on a male figure, particularly. So I think for us, very often, the first, I mean, along with our craft based technical skills, we also do a lot of soft skills. And a big part of that is actually just firstly getting them to open up, talk about what are their dreams, what are their aspirations, why are they doing this program, what do they want out of it, right? And for some of them, sometimes it's so simple, they just want to get out of the house. you know um, One particularly touching story in one of our centers in Hyderabad, actually, it's an urban center, is, one of our artisans, she had three girl children. And the youngest one, she said, the only place my youngest daughter feels loved is when she comes to the center, because at home she was a child no one wanted. Right? I mean, things like that. I mean, these are small things, but it's again that community feeling. It's about being with other women, it's about being in a safe space where they have the opportunity to not just learn a skill but be themselves, and to get onto the path of earning on their own. Today some of our women have bank accounts with more than 1 lakh in it, right? And it's just hugely empowering for them. During COVID now, a lot of our women are the only breadwinners for their family. It's huge. And for them to be in that position today, it's even more motivating for my team, right? Because we know what we're doing here. It's not just helping women come out of their homes. Maybe that was the initial goal, but it's really today about helping them run their families. It's about being the sole providers. It's a huge responsibility, but women are always up to the task. I mean, a woman earns 1 rupee, she will spend that on her family. She will find a way to stretch it to do amazing things. She'll look after education for her children, better nutrition for her family. She'll even set some aside in savings, and even find a way to do something special for her family. It's just amazing, right? So you give women an opportunity to find themselves, to know that their potential is much larger than what they were born to believe or brought up to believe. And you're just unleashing a whole lot of goodness into this world.
You talked about control and the choices and the opportunities that we have. And I suppose, Mayura, a lot of us can relate to that because we have had that privilege, we've had that opportunity. But I'm sure a lot of women today, and women especially, who are a part of the workforce but perhaps are working in sectors which are not directly controlled, not directly governed by labor laws, have to face a lot. And that this is the time when women who are self-reliant, such as working for you in craft business or in other small scale MSMEs, they get the power to run their household. I want to come to Seher. Seher, have you had a similar experience, a similar opportunity to speak to, most vulnerable women who are actually, they have no access to the mainstream market, they have no access to, education. Have you been in touch with similar women through your business? And have you had an opportunity to understand what their struggle is?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the comments are really well said by Mayura. But again, I worked in the rural sector in energy access. So essentially, we helped with solarizing agri equipment for farmers, sewing machines for women, solar powering their handlooms, etc. And of course, we were seeing in areas where we were able to give more predictable energy access, their incomes were doubling. And so of course that was very, very influential, especially when I just started off my career, and has definitely influenced what I have incorporated into bare necessities. So actually our women-run manufacturing team is amazing. It is the backbone of bare necessities. There is no products without them. They handcraft every product, whether it is the soaps or the detergents, everything is handcrafted by them. And they have shown so much resilience through this pandemic. One of the girls, her name is Shabreen on my team, every morning she would wake up at 7 and she learned how to ride a bike through the pandemic. She used to commute to office via bus. And in that 3-week lockdown, she learned how to ride a bike. And she wears a burqa. And so she and her sister are around the same age. So then when the lockdown eased, she would carry her sister's license in the interim until the DMV was open again for her to get her license, etc. And commuted to work. She now leads the manufacturing team. In the early days of the pandemic, actually, we had to video call. We did team video calls in Zoom, but I would be on WhatsApp showing videos of how you need to turn on the audio and the video, because my manufacturing team is so diverse and we come from various socioeconomic backgrounds. But right now, I mean, all of their tech skills have really skyrocketed. And I think that's something I'm really happy, proud of. We have someone on our team from Nagaland who takes lots of interest in team building activities for everyone. We have this really, really generous, amazing leadership coach named Sunitha, who basically is does all of this leadership training for UN agencies based out of Geneva and does a pro bono annual training for us. And we all go through the same leadership training every team Wednesday, irrespective of language or socioeconomic background or education background. We all go through the absolute same training and everything. So I'm really, really proud of all of the resilience that our manufacturing team has shown, and similarly have supported their family through the pandemic, because a lot of their spouses or fathers were in the construction sector, etc., and were laid off or did not have any form of revenue, bringing in any revenue. A lot of them are still laid off, unfortunately. So I think that's something that's been really, really inspiring for me to see. And they're just continuing to grow, and honestly, they really inspire me, and I'm really glad to have this amazing manufacturing team.
I have seen a lot of women taking the mantle of livelihood of their families and themselves during the lockdown. Harshita, have you spoken to women around you? Have you been actively in touch? And I want to draw your experience in from what's happening on the ground as far as remote parts of Karnataka is concerned, where you've been engaged actively as a part of your Be Engaged program. And what are the women feeling at this point in time? I know there is added pressure. I know that a lot of women are feeling very tired of the ongoing restrictions. Many women who are not a part of the organized sector are not able to come out, not able to do what they want to do. Exactly reaction that's coming in from women on the ground at this point.
Yeah. I'd like to actually bring your attention to our civic leadership program that we conduct at BPAC. Amongst that, 30% of them are women leaders. And these are women who have come from all walks of life. They have steadily and organically grown their political careers in Bangalore city. And I actually work primarily in urban Bangalore. So I've been in touch with them. So this is a classic case of women pulling up other women, right? So most of our BCLIP women leaders have been conducting a lot of programs through self-help groups. Some of them run garment factories, and they're on the toe trying to make sure that they're able to cope through this pandemic, all the while them being responsible for their families. So very often I come across people who don't acknowledge the role they play at home, because these are also women who have families. So they're able to, one, bring their own family together and make sure that nothing is no ball is dropped. And I mean, they're insane multitaskers. I mean, I haven't come across, and it's so inspiring, right? So every time that reminds me that I have the luxury of being unmarried right now and don't have a family of my own to look after, but these people actually get the job done. And they run, one of our leaders runs paper bag making workshop along with the women in her locality, so that she's empowering them economically. And I have seen through my previous engagements in a previous avatar, that when women lack the confidence because they think that the work that they do at home is nothing, right? I can easily sit here and tell you the parallels that we can draw from what a man does in an office to how they run the house. It's exactly all on the clock and has a lot more responsibility. But we fail to acknowledge that, and they fail to acknowledge that they play a big role in their own homes. So adding that financial security actually boosts their confidence. So that has helped a lot of people. And like Sayer said, there are a lot of people who are relying on their wives right now, because they are the ones who are able to adapt faster, as simple as that. So they're able to get more crafty. They are the ones who are been saving without telling their husbands, because they were saving for a rainy day, and the financial planning for them is a lot more real. So that's been my experience. So even the women leaders, they've quickly moved on in their entrepreneurship skills as well. So they've quickly adapted to the market change, and they're able to sustain a lot of their people in those areas.
Well, absolutely. I do have a few more questions, with respect to what's happening in the workforce as far as organized sector is concerned. And I want to go back to Sahar and Mayura at this point. As we push back as women, and in 2017, we saw a lot of changes, especially with respect to the Maternity Benefit Act, when the paid leaves were increased from 12 weeks to 26 weeks. And this resulted, many would say, in a lot of bias against hiring women. Nobody really wants to hire women between the age group of 25 to 35, when she's going to get married, have children, and you will have to necessarily send them on leave because it's mandated by law. As founders of two prominent organizations, how are you changing the discourse? Are you ensuring mandatorily that you hire more women? How are you helping other women? Sahar, to you first.
So actually, we've been really fortunate. Through the pandemic, we've hired 4 new women. So I'm really, really lucky that these amazing women have chosen to join Bare Necessities. We do have a healthcare policy in place. In fact, we increased the sum insured for all of our employees during these unprecedented times. And we were able to add all their family members onto the plan. Which was, I think, really, really great. I think times are changing, and we need to step up and build this more just world that we want to build. So I think it's up to us to maybe be these strong, awesome women, maybe raise these awesome, strong women, and maybe be inspired by these amazing women. So I think, structurally, I think it's up to us women in leadership to make changes in our organization that step up to the time. And I think everyone on my team has really spent time to innovate and do things that can uplift themselves, but also others on the team. And, it's totally a cycle of giving and taking. And I think we women, I think Michelle Obama might have said this once, but it's kind of like we play throw ball all the time. It's one act of kindness to one woman to the other, and it just kind of keeps coming back around. So yeah.
Yeah.
Come in, please. Yes.
Yeah. So, sorry, for a minute, actually, I dropped off. Can you just repeat the question? Oh, this is about women in the team, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So,
I just quickly. So what we've seen recently is that with a lot of benefits that women have accrued as a matter of fact, by the pushback that we've seen, a lot of women have fought hard for the rights that we have earned today, including the maternity benefit of 26 weeks. And that has resulted in a lot of bias. And you'll see a lot of CEOs and founders not hiring women solely because that they are the primary caregivers and they will be taking time off work. How are you changing that perception as a woman founder? I'm sure if you don't fight patriarchy, it's here to stay. So there is obviously more expectation from a woman founder when it comes to fighting back patriarchy in workforce.
Right. So, 80% of my core team are women. 70% of our artisans are women. And, being a startup, I think startups in general are very, have always been a little more flexible, right? In terms of working hours, in terms of, even pre-COVID, working from home or, not having to come to office every day, things like that were a given. So I've had women who joined us after taking a maternity break, and in fact taking an extended break of 2-3 years and then coming back to working. We currently have a team member who's on maternity leave. We've also had women take like switching careers and wanting to try something different, and me saying, yes, please come and try, see if it works or not. I mean, I'm willing to take a chance on you if you want to test this out. So, and I think that's not just our story. In general, I think startups are a lot more progressive, open, flexible, right? And I think somewhere COVID and work from home becoming the new norm is actually both, I would say, a blessing and a disguise. I think it is a blessing for women who still have that support network right at home, but it also has been a bit of a kind of disadvantage for women who don't have support at home, and they now find that all the household responsibilities are on them, right? Earlier, when you went to work, you would have that break, right? You were physically leaving your home, going to a different space, and you had help, or you had ways to manage your home. But now when you're put in a position where you're supposed to manage it all by yourself, it has worked out for some and it hasn't worked out for some. So I think there needs to be a little more. I think we need to now figure things through a little more, right? One, of course, the whole thing about the pandemic being contagious and all of that. So that's a big worry. But hopefully, whenever the vaccine comes out and work from home continues to be the norm, hopefully, because I think it's better for our environment and climate in general. But I think there needs to be a little more effort put in by companies to retain their women force, right? Today companies do these online fun sessions for employees, this that's great. But beyond all the fun and games, can we really look at what is going to be that game changer, so women who are at home don't leave their jobs, right? And they don't feel like now they have to sacrifice their jobs because they're at home and they have to suddenly take care of all the home responsibilities on their own. So it is an evolving question, and I'm sure over the next few months we'll kind of find out more, but it definitely needs to be addressed. There, like I said, there have been, fallouts and positives equally.
I'm going to come back to you on what can be done, the roadmap. But let me quickly, take up another interesting point that we discussed. You talked about, how women have to leave because they are the primary caregivers. They have to take care of children, have a family. Now, there was a study published in Harvard Business Review just about a couple of days back, and an article titled "Executive Women and Myth of Having It All." Basically, the myth that women can have it all. And it said that a third and a half of all successful women under high pressure jobs end up having no children. They don't have a choice. And Harshada, this is a question for you. We've seen a lot of successful politicians, and in India primarily, we love to vote for people who don't have a family, who don't have kids, and perhaps will be less corruptible. As a woman in the business of politics and policy making, what is your view of where we are today presently when it comes to the pressure on women to not start a family, to not get married? Because if you do end up getting married, you're losing out on your career.
Yeah, for sure. And it's mostly a choice. Most of the times it's presented like that because I can say that there are very few independent women who are actually running for office or in positions of power, most of the times, unfortunately, their partners or spouses have been a big influence. So statistically and through the systemic ways, we have ensured women have equal representation at the local governance and all of that, but that doesn't actually play out honestly in the way it's supposed to, and that's a little disheartening to see it upfront. But there are women who are seen as a trading off your family. It works more for male politicians, I've seen, and for women in politics, it is imperative that you have a Mrs. Tag in front of you, just so that they don't consider you as extremely ambitious or something like that. And it's also very glamorous to project women who have a family and a support system, because they are supposed to be the right amount of ambition, right? So if you're an unmarried woman trying to be in politics for too long, you're seen as on power with men. So that doesn't really play out in the real world. So that's my take so far, and that's what I've seen, that women, a lot of them get into politics once they are married, because it's somewhat easier to target the patriarchy that is inherent, and it's easier when you have a spouse supporting you. And the women, the spouses of male politicians actually are equally invested in their men, and their career. And it doesn't often, show. But I know a lot of people whose wives are running the show behind, because they are not able to be there in all those different places they're supposed to be at once. It's inhuman. So somewhere, this is what I have seen. And in my experience, that the confidence that the women need to have sometimes gets the makes it a hurdle for them rather than the benefit. That you're seen as a arrogant person, and you don't want to be they don't want to work with you, and there are always people trying to undermine your importance. And I know a lot of people who still get introduced by their male partners, or their fathers, as an introduction piece. So I think the acceptance of women in power is not yet complete in our minds, although we've had we've broken the glass ceiling a while ago when it comes to women in the top offices and all of that. But it's not there yet in terms of the behavior and the patriarchy that stops us from accepting women being completely in charge.
Well, let's be honest about it. In all the sectors that we see, that I've seen, at least personally speaking, they don't really like you if you're a woman who speaks. And especially if you're in politics or in media like me, they will target you, your gender, not the work that you do, not the body of work, but you in specific, because you're a woman and you can speak. And that really doesn't go down well with a lot of people. Mayura, you touched upon it. There's so much chatter around you when you start working, that, oh, this is the hobby that she's pursuing. Fine, she can sit at home and do it, doesn't have to go out very often. And we continue to battle that. We continue to battle that perception. And one of the perceptions, of course, is what, we just heard Harshita talking about, that as a woman, you are supposed to have a partner. And if you don't have a partner, then you're seen as too ambitious. And perhaps, you're always tagged as such, the odd one out. Have you had to battle that perception in your personal journey?
Yeah, so I think initially it was, to prove that I really wanted to be an entrepreneur and not just, do this as a hobby. And now it's okay, I can do it because I don't have a family, I'm single. Therefore, I have the time to do it. So, but, but having said that, I think, you know, life is always a trade-off, right? And I think when you pick a dream and you own it, and you go for it wholeheartedly, right? You can't drive two cars at once. So you pick that one car and you pick that one, journey, and in that process, you might end up making a trade-off, right? So people are going to judge you no matter what, right? If you take a break to have a career, I mean, if you decide to take a break and put a stop pause on your career, then you're up for some judgment or the other. If you choose not to have a family and focus on your career, then again, if you choose to want to have it all and try and balance it, then again, you're not doing this properly or that properly. And if you don't want to do anything, you don't want to have a career, even that's a problem, right? So I think somewhere, unfortunately, there has been this whole societal construct on what women should be like. What is that, like that ideal, sanskari nari, and if you go against that in any way or the other, it's an issue. It's definitely eased up. I think things are changing. It'll probably take a little more time, right? But I definitely look back at maybe my 20s to where I'm now. I mean, like, I'm going to turn 40 this year, and I can see the needle shifting. Harshita spoke about the glass ceiling being broken. Yes, it has. It still comes with judgments. It still comes with conditions. But hey, I think we are. I think there's never been a time when women have been heard. Maybe there's not been as much action, but there's never been a time when we've been heard as much as we have now. So I'm definitely I think we're on the right path.
I agree with most of what you said, barring one thing, Mayura, where you talked about women can't be riding two boats and simultaneously. And I had this conversation with a male colleague just a couple of hours back, and I told him that I am a primary caregiver by the virtue of my gender. It's not something I choose to do, but if I stop, or all women, as a matter of fact, stop having babies, there will be no more evolution. You will not have more, the human population growing. So this is bestowed upon me. I take it pridely, but I think you have to change in the way you deal with me. Your laws have to change, from your labor laws to how you take me back into the workforce to everything. You have to mold yourself. The system has to mold itself, and the government has to facilitate it. Until that happens, I don't really think there is a way out of this. I mean, it's always going to be what to choose between, either a career, a flourishing career, or have a family. And I don't think it's fair to have a choice. I know that women can't have it all. That's my personal view, but I do suppose we should at least strive to get as much as we can and what we desire. I do want Seher to come in on this. Seher, in your experience, I mean, I think the way Mayura summed it up, she said, we are always going to be judged. But in your experience, do you think what you want, you have what you wanted, or there's so much more that you want, but you can't really have it?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, growing up, I had only one message, and that was that we can have it all. I lost my dad when I was 8 years old. My mom is a single mom. She raised three girls all by herself. She went full time to study after she had a full time job, and honestly did it all. So that was the only message I got growing up. And I think she also gave us this message that you shouldn't compromise on your partner. And I think it's up to us. We should also make this conversation a little bit more inclusive, because there might be partnerships with two women, or there might be partnerships with two men. So are we saying the one who has a more thriving career has to do that, and the one who does not have a very thriving career has to be the stay-at-home parent or spouse or whatever partner in that relationship? And I think it's up to us to build this more equal world where we say that whoever comes back home first cooks. And I think we just have to have a little bit more respect in these partnerships. And I think we need to raise our kids, whether it's men or boys or girls, to kind of embody those same values of equality. So I think it's up to us to kind of help shape this world. And I think you're right. I think policies need to change for sure, whether it's at an organizational level, at a systematic level, at a country level, to be more inclusive, to kind of acknowledge some of these challenges, and to make policies just more strengthened so we can institutionalize change and we can make it faster. But I also think we should, I think we should also kind of give a little bit of credit to some of the partners out there who have also really helped their partners, irrespective of gender, have that thriving career. And it's a little bit of working together to do it. So yeah, I think give them a little credit where it's due as well.
Well, absolutely. The credit is due. I mean, we've had a lot of men reformers, back from Raja Ram Mohan Roy in early 20th century till now. We've had a lot of men who've supported the cause of women, a lot of men who consider themselves to be feminist. I do want to bring in a very important topic that's been in the debate, and we're running short of time, so we're going to hurry a little bit. So paid menstrual leave. This is something we've talked about a lot recently after Zomato's decision to give women leave for menstruation or while they're menstruating. All of us at some point or the other have taken leaves, at least most of us, if not all. And we've cited various reasons, said we're unwell, we have a stomach ache, unable to stand up for the morning assembly in schools. There is a huge debate. Many working women say that if you desire equality and if you desire a just world, then you have to push yourself. Harshita, I want to bring your thoughts into this. Where do you stand as far as the decision to give paid menstrual leaves to women is concerned? Are you with the decision, or do you think it's asking too much, perhaps 2 days leave every month?
For me, it's drawing a fine balance and also giving the option to opt, because that is something that we need to keep in mind, that each one of us are built differently. So if I am able to push through for whatever reason, I should be allowed to make that choice. And if I want to take those leaves, I should be able to and the policy should allow us to take those 2 leaves, is my take on that.
Seher, Mayura, if you can quickly come in on it.
Yeah, honestly, at the NSSCs, we have a very liberal leave policy. So honestly, do as you wish. Ultimately, it's the work and the deliverable. So as much as leave as you want is fine. But we have an understanding on the work, and that is what it kind of boils down to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what the other two said. I mean, each period can be different. Forget that each woman is different. Sometimes you want a break that day. And, we've always been flexible in the sense you want to work from home that day, or you don't want to work, you want a day off. That's perfectly fine. I do think, though, that with larger organizations, the issue becomes more tricky, right? And therefore, I can understand the hesitation from larger corporations to make it mandatory. So I don't know the right or wrong answer here, but I think somebody with there are some women who have tougher periods and who have like PTSD, etc. So PCOS, etc. So if they have a medical requirement for needing that leave, I think they should be given that.
All right, with that, we are going to slip into questions. We do have a few questions that have come in from our audience. This is to Mayura. Mayura, a question from Jay Lakshmi, and Jay Lakshmi says that I want to know, how can a woman face the judgments when we are in a progressive level in career? So how do we deal with the judgments that we face? Something that you mentioned initially in the first round of discussions.
So, well, I mean, it all comes down to, I guess, what it means to you, right? I mean, is that judgment something that's affecting your work? Is it something that's affecting your personal well-being? Is it something that's affecting your emotional well-being, right? So for me, whenever I'm faced with a situation where it's disturbing in some way or the other, I seek help. I seek help from my network. I talk things through with people, and I try and see somewhere, why does that issue bother me in the first place, right? Sometimes I then look at maybe ways to adapt, ways to confront that with the person or the situation in which I face that judgment, right? So, but I never choose to flee away from it. When it comes to fight or flight, I always fight. But I also try and see if there's maybe some way to learn from it as well, and try and see if there's a way to, I don't know, somehow either talk things through or figure things out in a way that's non-confrontational. So that's me, because I prefer to talk things through.
Well, I think I'll add quickly to that. I face a lot of judgment as a woman in media, and I get a lot of hate messages. So one way I deal with it is I block the people who send me a lot of hate messages. But you realize you can't keep blocking people, right? So what do you eventually do? I used to reply to a lot of people, and then I realized this is just a waste of time. People who have to judge you, people who are going to say nasty things to you, will continue to do that, and all you do is keep up with what you're doing. I think that is what angers them the most, that you're not replying and you don't really care about the judgments that they have to make, and you continue doing what you have to do. There's a question for Seher as well, and the question is from Ashfaq Ali, and he says, hope Masoor can share some more of her experience if possible. I'm not sure what experience he's hinting at. So Seher, I'm just going to perhaps then ask you to elaborate on the same question I asked from Mayura, your own experience on the kinds of judgments that you have to face from society by the virtue of being a single woman, successful woman, doing what she wants to do.
Yeah, sure. I mean, honestly, when I was started to talk about zero waste and sustainability in 2015, it was not so mainstream, the topic of zero waste. So, there was a lot of judgment, elderly kind of well-meaning aunties, but so you moved from Cambridge and WHO to work in Kachra, like, that was kind of there are all of these questions that they ask you, like, why did you leave your WHO job to go and work in Indian villages? So there's all of this judgment with no concern of what your happiness is, or what your goals are, or kind of just articulating social impact that goes way beyond Excel spreadsheets. So I think just articulating that was kind of hard for me in early days. But I think you learn along the way and you kind of adapt and do what works for you. And ultimately, I think it's worked out in the end, I guess. So just filter out all the negatives and focus on the positives.
All right. We do have one more question from Jayalakshmi, and this is to you, Harshita. How difficult is it to choose between personal work and professional tasks, especially when your family insists that you do your personal work first? So if your family is insisting that you do what they're expecting you to do, how do you then make a choice between what you want to do and what needs to be done?
In one way, I'm lucky because my passion and my work are the same. So I don't have to maintain three different parts. Of course, the family commitments are always there, and my parents are they are also influenced to feel that they're not doing their job as parents because they're not forcing me to do certain things. So even if they are okay, it is their peer pressure that actually affects me. So even if they're okay with me not fulfilling some family commitment or something, if they are flexible, it is the people who come there will be like, oh, is it, and all of those kinds of things. It's been a long journey now. It's been 7 years, so there's been a lot of shift in the mindset of my own parents. It started from, why do you want to go to work? We will provide for you, and you have everything, to no, she's busy, and no, she's traveling on another trying to understand new things, and she's traveling alone. And there I have seen them starting to stand up. And I have a really strong brother who is always like made sure that patriarchy doesn't get the better of my parents most of the time. So once in a while I'll have to like seek his help, saying that, hey, I think you need to step in because this is becoming unbearable. But yeah, and I have extremely strong friends who stand up for me. And so if there is a situation, they will butt in and just help my parents understand better, because those kinds of conversations are always difficult just one-on-one with your parents. So it's been a journey, and there is a lot of trade-offs, of course, and there are times that you have to choose. But most of the times I'm lucky because I'm working and getting paid for something that I'm already very passionate about.
All right, so we're going to wind up this panel with one last question, perhaps, and this should have been the starting of our conversation, but we're going to end with it. Can women have it all? In one line, perhaps each of you, starting with Mayura, can women have it all?
Well, I hope women can have all that they want.
All right. Seher?
Yes. We have to choose good partners, but yes.
All right. Harshita?
Yes, I think so too. And like Mayura said, it's up to us to choose what we want to have all, right? It's my definition. So I think as long as we are happy with that, I think we're pushing the needle collectively.
All right. So with that, we're going to wrap up this session. And I have extreme pleasure speaking to all of you ladies. So Sean, I think the way it sums up is, yes, women can have it all, but there is a subtext there. You have to choose what you want to be, what you want to do, and then decide whether you were able to get all that you wanted. There's so much expectation from us, the women, and we are conscious and we're aware, and we try to do as much as we can. And most of the times it's about taking the right learning in and rejecting all the negativity that comes our way by the virtue of our gender. It's been an extreme pleasure, ladies. Thank you very much once again for taking your time out. Over to you, Sean.
Thank you, Shweta, and thank you, ladies. That was a very informative panel. I enjoyed and was honored to be a part of it. I'm the father of 2 young daughters who I can tell you are watching in the background, and they're not going to, as they go into their lives, they're going to choose the direction of their lives. And one of you said that, one of you defined having it all as that way. When I came into this, I thought of the panel's theme, can women have it all? And I immediately thought, can they get to the highest levels of business and government and also still have a family? And I thought, well, yes, they can, because I see it in my own family. But I really like, and I apologize for not remembering which one of you defined it differently. Choose the direction of your life, because as I look at this, I see that we're all coming from somewhat privileged backgrounds, and you are all trailblazers. But you highlighted that women from underprivileged classes or economic positions don't have the same freedom or support sometimes that that others have, and really that's what we're really looking for. I think, I can't speak for women, but I would think that what we would desire would be, as humankind, to get to the point where every human has the ability to choose the direction of her or his life. And I guess that's all I've got to say. I'm glad to see that the State Department is supporting these very honorable and noble projects. And I like when I hear about the success that you're having, reaching out into the community and helping other women and helping other families come up. I see that it's all resources well directed, and makes me feel proud as an American taxpayer to be part of it. So thank you all very much for letting me be part of your program. Keep up the good work, and girls rule, right? Thank you.